Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by
TikTok Cafe, located on Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our menu offers breakfast dishes like our Western omelet made from scratch biscuits, grits, egg sunny side up, and lunch specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special, and that every Tuesday is steak night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll touch on all the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Pelicans, the LSU Tigers, the Tulane Green Wave, and we're not going to let our guest get out of here without talking about Nichols. Mike Detillier, one of our most asked-for guests, is on the program tonight. NFL college football analyst extraordinaire. Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Can we start off with Nichols, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Because man, I was watching that game, and what a heartbreak. Again, South Dakota State was a pretty good team, but I thought Nichols had their number down the stretch there. Well, Coach Rebo has done an excellent job in turning that program around.
You know, I always tell Timmy, before he took over, they were 1-28 in the Southland Conference. He was 7-2 this year in the Southland Conference. Tim's done a fantastic job recruiting. You know, at Nichols, you're not getting the fives and the fours or the threes.
Right.
You know, you're going and catching those twos and guys that maybe people think are undersized or are not fast enough or whatever. His biggest land was certainly Chase, getting Chase Forcade, and then Sully Lesh from Lutcher. My cousin Tim, it was like, Mike, do what you got to do to get him a major college scholarship. Nobody would touch him. They said, you know, he's too small. He's not going to play. From day one at Nichols, he was a man out on that field, and I'm proud of what Tim's done. Get him into the playoffs year 3, and I think he'll have his best team next year with a worse record. He starts the season out in Manhattan, Kansas, against Kansas, Tulane, Sam Houston.
Right.
So that's how you start the schedule next year for Nichols. But Tim's done a fantastic job, and he's done it, I would think, I think percentage-wise, it's almost like 82% of the players are from that 100-mile area that he's been able to recruit and done a fantastic job. And looks like he's going to have a real strong recruiting season this year, too. But eventually, somebody comes knocking.
Yeah, sure they do.
When you're that successful, somebody's going to come a-calling. But he's done a fantastic job, his staff being able to piece together. But I was so impressed defensively this year with Nichols. They played so much better. They have talent and depth up front, which is unusual because normally that's where you're real thin. But you watch that game and listen, Eric, I didn't think I'd live long enough to see the officials stop the game because there was too much noise at John L. Guidry Stadium. The 9,100 people there, and they stopped the game because the South Dakota quarterback, who's really good.
Yeah, yes, he is.
He's a pro-style guy. He's got a chance. He started at Minnesota, then they moved him to receiver, which I don't quite get. But so he went to South Dakota instead. He was terrific that day, throwing the football, also running it. But, man, to see him that close and lose the the ball at the end. Kyron Irvin, who's been a tremendous back for Nichols.
Yeah.
And he did fumble it at the end of the game. But, oh, man, controversial calls across the board there. I'm not sure they're going to hire SWAC officials again to make those calls.
I didn't realize it was SWAC officials until we talked before we came on the air today.
Sure enough. Accidentally, I knew a couple of them. They came up to me. Hey, my deal is what you guys doing it? No, we were officiating today. That was some weird calls in that game, but real proud of Timmy and what Nicholls State's done. And I always tell him, if you've watched, the Dick Vermeil story and how all that goes, and he always talked about having that certain sound back in Philadelphia that had been lost for almost 20 years.
Right.
Well, you got that sound back at Nichols, at John L. Guidry Stadium, and Rebo's done a fantastic job. But, man, listen, what Chase and Sully meant to be the cornerstones of the recruiting, that's the other part of the story.
Yeah. Tulane's got to kind of follow in the footsteps of what Coach Rebo's doing now. When you look at Tulane, they got robbed against SMU, 41-38. So many ramifications to this. A chance to go to a bowl game, a chance to be 500, the money that comes with a bowl game, the extra month that you get to be able to practice. I mean, and then again, the feeling of the program is saying that we've made it now, made that next step, and of course, all that comes down to a very, very controversial call. Mike, I've looked at the game a couple times. I don't know how you missed that. It looked as though Banks went into the end zone on the SMU player's body, and it should have been a touchdown. But unfortunately, they're 5-6. They're not going 5-7. They're not going bowling. And coming up, as I've said, I think Coach Fritz has got to emulate what Coach Rebo has done at Nicholls State. You've got to get these Louisiana kids to go to Tulane.
He was so close to having that thing where, okay, Tulane's relevant again.
Yes.
Because we're in a bowl game. You can look, look the improvement we have, but that bowl game meant so much to them to be able to, that calling card for some of the guys around the state. And Willie's done a fantastic job. But, man, listen, I'll be honest. He squeezes all the vitamin C you can out of that orange at Tulane.
Agreed.
He's done a fantastic job there. But what he's got to do is leave his footprints in the walking grounds here in recruiting.
Yes.
Because too many of these kids today, and listen, I know I get the phone calls from coaches, if it's SMU, TCU, you name it, Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston, they are all over Louisiana. LSU can't sign everybody. And Alabama's going to come in here and grab a couple, three. You have other SEC schools, if it's Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Louisiana Tech has come down, grabbing Amik Robertson from Thibodeau, who actually had an LSU offer to go to Tech. So he's got to be able to grab those guys that are the threes and bring them to Tulane. They may be undersized, or it may be a 6'5", 250-pound guy that you got to get to 290, 300. You're going to have to work with that. But he's done a fantastic job, and proud of what he's been able to do at Tulane. Now he's got to win in the state of Louisiana, and predominantly in that kind of 45-mile area from New Orleans out.
Yes.
You've got to be able to win at least some of the battles there, and he hasn't. And that's why this game, people, it's just no, it was significant.
No, really significant.
Because of the fact that you would have finally been able to put that flag in the ground and said, hey, listen, we're a bowl team playing in a bowl, and what that means. You get a lot of attention, and also recruits watch that.
Sure. As far as Tulane goes, as far as the next step for some of those players that are going to be graduating, there are some players on this team that will be drafted, right?
Yeah, and the running back position has been a spot where they've hit and sent people to the NFL, and certainly Dontrell Hilliard has done a fantastic job there, and they got a cornerback that when he is going to work out for the Scouts. Now, I don't think he has a Senior Bowl invite. He's got an East-West Shrine invite. That's where he can shine there. And tall, well-built, plays the ball well in flight, has good hands. Right now, he's probably a middle-round pick.
To Barry Nickerson.
Yeah, Nickerson.
Right.
Exactly. And so he's got that opportunity to make a little run here. And again, too bad he's not playing the bowl game, because that's where you would get a lot of attention on you.
And why not, Mike? Because normally it's been traditional. They've taken more players from the South And they've taken Tulane players in the past to the Senior Bowl. Any reason why?
So far, I wouldn't know why he hasn't gotten that. Though, a lot of times invites get put out and the agent gets involved. Man, you don't need to go to the Senior Bowl.
Wow.
You don't need to go. Get yourself ready for the combine. That's more important. So that's why Nickerson better get himself ready, because he may well double dip this.
Yes.
He may go East-West Run and then head to Mobile and do it there. And if I was guiding him, that's where I would tell him to go. You need more exposure, and also too to have all of the NFL world looking at you. And right now, he's a guy that I look at it, he's got better cover skills than Lorenzo Doss at this stage.
That's saying a lot.
He's got better cover skills.
Saying a lot. Roger Teamer, a chance to get into an NFL camp?
I think he's got a shot as a free agent. Again, it's a hard cut, but I think he's got an opportunity to certainly play at the next level.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see again how many of those guys ultimately get a chance at an NFL camp, because Tulane's had quite a few players over the last few years that have
at least get into the camp.
Yeah, at least show what you've got.
And so that's important. And also, too, I think it has a lot to do with the state of Louisiana to say, man, look, per capita. Right. And you can't overlook those numbers. 7 out of the last 10 years, Louisiana has been number one per capita in putting out players to the National Football League.
Yes.
So my thing is, you know what, if I got a scout, and if you don't find players in Louisiana, if it's at Southeastern or Nicholls State or UL Lafayette, Louisiana Tech, it's just not all about LSU, which has been unbelievable, then I better find me another scout.
Yes. Mike, it'd be interesting to see again how Tulane kind of comes back from this. Hopefully, again, this is going to be something they can really build on. I'll give Coach Willie Fritz a lot of credit. He took the high road on this. I don't know if I was the coach of that team that I'd have taken the high road that he's taken with this situation.
There's not a lot of coaches that would have blowing their stacks about it. So I agree with you. And you know what? In watching what he does, he is such a good fundamentalist as a coach to teach people how to play the game right. It's not about a technique mistake. Somebody's going to make mistakes in a game, but it's not about technique. And he's involved in everything, in every phase of it. That tells me just what type of football coach he is. Now let's see if he can translate that into recruiting.
Yes.
Years ago, I did a lot of junkets when Nick Saban was down here. And Nick used to say there are two types of coaches. One coach that can recruit and one coach that can coach. Rarely do you get a guy that can do both. When you got that, you got something. Now, Nick can do both. He can recruit and he can develop players. He always used to say that is that R&D factor, recruit and develop football players. The one thing I do know about Willie, he can develop them. Now let's see if he can upgrade the recruiting part of it.
Yeah, and of course he came in a little bit behind.
Yeah, the first year is always difficult. We saw with Coach O, who had ties here.
Right.
It wasn't as good as I know he would have wanted, and we've seen in years past, even though it finished as a top 10 recruiting class. Yeah.
Speaking of Coach O, LSU 45, A&M 21. Tigers finished 9-3 in the regular season, 6-2 in the SEC. Mike, different team since Troy. We sat here almost a month and a half ago, and we talked about a little bit about what's going on with the LSU program. There were a lot of people that were jumping off the bandwagon, wanted Coach O, wanted to know what the buyout was, all this other stuff. Coach O got this team, rallied this team, and this team was a different team from Troy on.
No question about it. And I'm a big believer in this, that people always say you can judge somebody's character during hard times. Man, who really does well in hard times? You try to do your best to get out of it with some grace and dignity and work your way out, and you have a new perspective. How you can really judge someone, let them get a little bit of success and see what it does to them. It changes a lot of people. I really believe this, and I passed it along to Owen. He might not agree. I think the early success put a lot of things in those young men's heads that they were better than what they were and didn't have to work maybe as hard. They told us BYU was going to be tough. And we wiped the floor with BYU. Chattanooga was another story. All of a sudden, they roll into Starkville, Mississippi, and we've beaten this team so many times, no problem. and all of a sudden the wheels come off the cart, and you barely squeak by and beating Syracuse, and then you lose to Troy. I think the origin of how this season kind of took a twist all started with game one. Expectations out of control. That this football team, it's easy. Just roll us to Alabama. Just roll us there, we'll be undefeated. It didn't work out that way. Man, listen, you got to work at it and work hard at it. The other thing, too, with Coach O, everybody's giving you advice on how to act. Be the CEO.
Right.
You know what? Be Coach O. That's what this team wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted him to be that fiery guy and to be in their face and to be emotional about things. That's what I've known all his life.
Right.
That's the type of guy he is. You didn't maybe see that for a period of time. I think he was, everybody kind of gets advice about how to do things. I think his advice was, you got to be the calm, cool guy. Be the CEO. Come on, that ain't his personality.
Be yourself.
And one thing with 18, 19, 20-year-old young men, they know if you're phony.
Oh, yeah.
They know if you're phony. And I think, too, is you had to find leaders on this football team. And you saw from that moment on, Darrell Williams, Danny Etling, Devin White, Rashard Lawrence. What a difference maker he is when he's in the lineup.
Sure.
Greedy Williams, John Battle. Then when Darius comes back, he's not 100%. But those other guys say, man, look at Darius. And he's fighting through all of this, doing an unbelievable job. Then Arden came back. He wasn't in shape, but we saw in Alabama what he could do. Then he gets hurt again in that game. So, and I give him a solid B this year. He went through a tough stretch, got it out. I'll tell you a quick story Pete Jenkins told me in the summer. And Coach Don Rodriguez, I hope he's watching, Coach, because him and I used to work together at Thibodeau Regional. He retired. Now he's doing the worst thing. He's coaching again. Old coaches never die. They just find another job.
There you go.
And we got a chance to talk to Coach Pete, and I asked him, why are you doing this? 76 years old, why are you doing this? He said, Mike, I love it. I love coaching. He says, it's definitely a young man's game. The hours, the time, the effort you got to put into it. I would not do this for anybody but Ed Orgeron. And he threw his hands up. It's like a spiritual revival to be around Coach O. He said, you heard all the talk. I said, I got it. And he said, he does inspire me every day. How he comes in, high energy, that sort of thing. But he said, you know why I really wanted to stay? He said, I'm 76 years old. I've done this for a long time. I could stay retired, go fish, be on my boat. But there's going to come a day. He said, you were part of it. You did those banquets. You did all those speaking deals, all those people cheering, all those people patting them on the back, all those people, I want to take a picture with you, Coach O. Are you the greatest, Coach O? We behind you. He said, you know what? Some of them are going to turn on you. And people that don't like you, and he said, he named off a couple guys in the media, and I know they don't like him. They going to jump on him. And he said, I'm here to tell him, come talk to me. You and I talk about how we going to work this out. And he said, it happens to every coach. That first year, man, you all full of yourself. Man, then people are cheering for me and everything's great. And the same guys that were against you, oh, man, we want to interview with you, Coach. Oh, you're the best. You're the perfect fit for here.
New kid in town.
New kid in town. Now they turn on you, and it don't take much. And O's comment to me was, hey, listen, I know you and Bobby, and you guys got to do what you got to do. If it's bad, you got to say it's bad. And you know what? We still friends at the end.
All you can ask for is to be fair.
That's all he asked for. Be fair with me.
That's all you can ask for.
And don't make up stories.
Right.
Don't say, oh, I knew what was going on when you have no idea and you're not in those rooms and you don't know what was going on behind the scenes. And like he said, some of it has a little grain of truth to it. But the other 98% is made up through someone's imagination who, they want clicks and clicks and clicks and get there. But I thought it was interesting that Pete saw this coming in July. That happened late September and into October. He foresaw it, that this would occur on this LSU football team, and they fought out of it. Now, I picked them to be 9-3. So, I know my buddy Colin always says, there's Colin's right and Colin's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I was Mike Wright on 9-3. Now, other than the Alabama loss, the two other losses I was dead wrong about. But I thought this team had a shot to be a double-digit winning team. They've got a lot of talent on this football team. They went through injuries, people transferring, so you were paper thin, offensive, defensive line. But you saw at the end they found a way to make it work. This is not the offense Coach O wants to run. There is no doubt about it. That's not what he wants to run. I always think you're a creature of your success. What you've seen being done in the past with you. I go back to his days at Miami of Florida when he was an assistant, when he was at SC with Pete Carroll, even when he didn't have no success at Ole Miss. Then he comes to the Saints for a year. He goes to Tennessee with Lane Kiffin, who ran the same offense USC had, and then he went back to USC.
Yes.
He wants to run power I with a fullback, tight end, wide receiver in motion, and pro-style attack. That's not what you're getting from Matt Canada. It's not going to work out that way.
Well, then why hire him?
Well, that's a good question, and I think sometimes, people can recommend guys, and I can understand from his point of view, LSU's sinkhole had been at the quarterback position.
Absolutely.
And look over the last 4 years, what Canada did at North Carolina State with Jacoby Brissett, who was a cast-off from Florida, and Nathan Peterman, who Tennessee told, you can leave. And so he went to Pitt. And also, too, I think last year, if my memory's right, it's like 42 or 44 points a game.
Yes.
Pitt was averaging.
Yeah, no.
So you can get overwhelmed with that. But all the guards and tackles swinging, that's not what Ed's used of. And you know what? He might not be right, but he is the boss. And I think that there's a philosophical difference there between Matt Canada and Ed Orgeron on how to run the offense. Here's my deal, though. Once you find your guy, then you give him the keys to the car. He's got to run the offense. You don't know the offense.
Right.
That's his part of the field. You handle the defense with Aranda. But bring in a guy that's going to run what you want to run. And I do think in Louisiana, you can find that big fullback, halfback, they kind of carry the load, alternate with two guys. And you can still be in motion. But the guards and tackles shifted and all. And you heard it during some of the games that some of the players were hollering, just don't move.
Right.
Let them shift. That wasn't fooling anybody.
No, not in the SEC.
It's not gonna work. So I do think there's going to be an amicable way for them to both go their own ways, and I think Ed's going to bring in somebody. I know he brought up Steve Ensminger's name, but I'll talk to Steve and I'll coach the bowl game, but he's not going to be the full-time offensive coordinator there. That's going to run what he saw at Miami, Saints, USC. I think that's what he wants, that power football with the lead fullback up front and then kind of doing what you got to do motion-wise. But I know he wants the tight ends and running backs involved in the passing game. That was something when you watched Miami years ago and you watched SC and the Saints, they got it in there. One of the things he picked up from Sean was the deep pass, because he said, I'd never been on a team that had thrown the deep ball. And so he goes with the Saints. They had Devery at that time. And he said, it was, I put that into the arsenal that I wanted, because I saw what it did to take that safety out the box, and I could run the ball, but I also put a little fear in them every week throwing the ball. But you look at LSU's passing game, what it needs to be, help that is an intermediate game. Everything with Danny was either real short or real long.
Yes.
They didn't have anything from 9 to 20 yards down, or very little. That's where a Miles Brennan, Lowell Narcisse, when whoever wins that battle, and I think Miles is the favorite at this point, that's where they've got to excel to take this offense to another level. You can run all the formations you want, but be the smartest guy in the room.
As far as Canada goes, rumors that maybe he's the one that went to Coach Oliva, to athletic director Oliva, going over Coach's head. Any truth to that?
That part I really would have no inside knowledge on, that if he was the guy. I heard the same rumor.
Right, and that was where the rift came from.
That was
allegedly.
when the rift came from. In essence, why go to him? Why don't you come to me about it and we talk it out? Another thing, too, is Ed kind of laid it all on the cards on the table. I told Dave, let's not do all that shifting. Why are you starting Nick Brossette? In essence, he's telling you ahead of time, I didn't like what he was doing in that stretch. And I always think, when you have difficult times on the field, if there's any tension, it comes out. Well, listen, we saw it here with the Saints.
Sure we did.
With Sean Payton and Greg Williams.
Yes.
We saw it in that particular spot. Rob Ryan and Sean Payton. It's not a first time, there's no rookie doing this. Everybody's got it. And I would be interested to see, because I do think LSU's got an opportunity here. I talked to Coach Miles a few years back about it. And, next time I see Ed, and we're going to have that same talk. If you're going to make this USC South pro-style attack, you've got to start with one guy to be that quarterback, to attract the others. If you're a top high school kid and you say, man, look at the receivers we got, look at the running back, how many guys you put in the pros at quarterback? Zero.
That's right.
And so what you can do is, well, everybody's out for the dual threat guy. You become the school in the SEC to say, you come here, we run a pro-style attack. Now, you may have to go to Texas sometimes, or California, or Arizona, but Dak Prescott is from Houghton, Louisiana.
Yes, he is.
He's running a pro-style attack with the Cowboys. So you think about Tanner Lee, leaves the state, goes to Nebraska, and he had an up-and-down year this year for him, but pro-style quarterback.
Yes.
Chase Forcade, you can't tell me he's not running some semblance of a pro-style attack at Nicholls State. And Shea Patterson, great example. Now, if I had Shea, my thing is, I know he can scoop. So I'll roll the pocket. A little bit left, a little bit right. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, is when Ole Miss's sanctions come down, does the NCAA say, you know what, guys, I'm going to free you.
That's right.
It's your proclamation day. You can go wherever you want and not have to sit out. Can you imagine Greg Little, the left tackle, Shea Patterson? Now, I think a lot of the juniors will leave early to the NFL.
Right.
But good gracious, Eric, that is going to be a wild melee for those players at Ole Miss, and especially Little and Shea, because you're talking about guys that are going to be one and done.
Right.
But for that 1 year, you're getting one heck of a football player.
I want to go back to the coach for a moment. If he wants to run the pro-style offense, you've got to have a good quarterback coach. That was one of the things that Canada was looked at as a guy that could cultivate quarterbacks. I got to believe that's got to be in the cards here. If ultimately there is a parting of the ways, he will be looking for someone that can cultivate a signal card.
Yeah, I think philosophy-wise, he kind of basically he didn't have to say anything about Matt Canada at that press conference.
Sure.
He could have walked away from all of that. He was the one. Now listen, he's like me. He's a Cajun from the Bayou, so you couldn't bite his tongue.
Right.
He's basically telling you ahead of time. Listen, I've known him for long enough. He might not tell me something outright,
but you read between the lines.
And that's even beyond reading the lines. He's telling you, this is what I want in an offensive coordinator. And it's got to be a guy that can develop quarterbacks, because I do think this is your moment in time where you can turn LSU into that school. People say, well, Les ran a pro-style offense. When? He ran power I, but he didn't run no pro-style offense. He didn't throw the ball to the backs or to the tight ends. That wasn't even in the playbook, so to speak. We heard it every year, but he never did it. This is an opportunity for Ed at this moment, with so much turbulence in the SEC, to make your mark here, to say, you know what, let these other schools run the spread. We're going to be pro-style, and that first guy that does it is going to attract the second and the third and the fourth. That's what they did at USC when they got Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, Matt Castle. It was kind of a John David Booty.
Yes.
You could see the lineage all the way down. They were able to attract those type players. Do that at LSU. Les passed on that. He didn't want to do it at that point.
Mike, why didn't Brennan play more this year? I mean, especially
I think a lot of it had to do with opportunity. When do you pull him? And you know what? And I think Ed's pretty loyal to players. And, I think he saw, man, look, they don't have better quarterbacks that can throw the football than Danny. But tough, hard-nosed, gritty, gives you everything he's got, played through injuries. If I wouldn't know no better, I'd swear he came from the Bayou. I mean, he's that type of guy.
And he got better this year.
And he got better, and I think he got more comfortable. And listen, I'll give Matt Canada a lot of credit. I thought for the injuries, and the key one was Geis. People don't realize when you built your offense around that star player and he's not there, or he's 60% of what he was. That takes away a lot. I think the MVP for LSU this year is Darrell Williams.
I do too.
His ability to run the football, catching the ball coming out the backfield. And he kind of became a leader. He took over. Hey, listen, we're not letting this season slip away from us. He became a big-time leader, and I think he's put himself on the pro map. Right. In a lot of ways, he reminds me of Pierre Thomas. He's not as quick. His first step isn't as fast, but you watch what he does. He's a stronger runner between the tackles. He catches the ball well. Now, I don't want him running football 400-meter relay team for me, but you know what? We're playing football.
Right.
He's going to play a lot of years in the NFL. And you saw, too, his unsung guy, Russell Gage. Not only as a receiver, special teams.
Yeah.
Man, every time they punted the football, Russell Gage was right there.
Yeah.
And that's amazing what he's done from a defensive back, turn wide receiver. And I know a lot of NFL people say, you know, he'll be a backup for us, but boy, he'll be a core special teams player for us for a long time.
Yeah. I would say Devin White on the defensive side.
Oh, he was fantastic. And the one other guy, too, the biggest surprise, Greg Gilmore.
Yes, really came on.
Eric, where would this team have been without him?
No, true.
You know, his ability to stop things up in the middle, his push inside, he showed a pretty good pass rush. But that was a lot about Pete developing his talents. And he was an underachiever up until a year ago. And then you started to see it toward the end of his junior year. He's the biggest surprise that LSU's had on that football team this year and what he was able to accomplish. And good gracious, had you not had him in the middle, you'd have had a difficult time.
Yeah. Citrus Bowl or Outback Bowl? Jeff Duncan,
I think it's Citrus.
Jeff Duncan reported today, Michigan State and the Citrus. Well, I tell you what, maybe a little downer for LSU going back to Citrus for the second straight year? Your opinion?
All I know is if I know Ed, he ain't no downer. And I think it was a deal kind of set up where it looked great for the Outback Bowl.
It really did.
Saints Tampa, and then you got LSU, and it almost looked like
a Chamber of Commerce matchup.
Yeah, exactly. But Mississippi State losing to Ole Miss opened the door to the Citrus Bowl for them. They'll have a lot of people. I know my family's out there this week out in Disney. So I think a lot of people will take that trip. But to get to 10 wins is huge for Coach O. And, you think about from 2005 to 2013, that was only 2 years in that frame. They didn't get to 10 wins. Les did a fantastic job rolling that up, 3 SEC championship games, 2 national title games, winning a national championship. But last couple years, they haven't clicked to that 10. Now, I think that's important for Ed in year one. And it would be a major accomplishment for him and that football team, considering what you saw in late September and October.
Got about a minute before I have to go to break. Arden Keavy, we see him again in a Tiger uniform?
No, I think it's it. I think the injury is going to kind of curtail that. I think Darius Geis plays.
That's my next question.
That's the one thing. Man, Darius is a warrior. But I think with Arden, with the injury, and I know he had the finger surgery, if I were advising him, I would tell him to play. But, with the injuries he's had, and he can win the second season. Right. So I think he's going to sit out the Citrus Bowl.
Our guest tonight is Mike DeChillier. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Quick break. We'll be right back. We'll talk a little Saints next.
Air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or AmcoFenceCompany.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Mike Detillier is our guest. Mike, Saints lose to the Rams 26-20. The 8-game win streak is over. 4 of the next 5 games, critical for this team to win the NFC South, to get to the playoffs. They're 8-3 now. They just did not look like they were ready to play on Sunday. Didn't look like Peyton and Allen made a lot of adjustments on Sunday. Give us your synopsis, and then we'll kind of really dig deep into it.
8 games in a row in the NFL is amazing to have that run. People like to compare this team to 09 and 11. Well, those teams were a much more veteran team than this. You can't compare. Now, how the season started to break, I understand that you were winning games in a certain fashion similar, but you're not built the same. And I always say with a fairly young football team, which you have, how they react to the success, and I go back to that, how they react to the, oh man, we got this. Look what we did against the Redskins and came back and win. This is an easy game. We go on the coast. We beat the Rams. The 26-20 score was no indication of how dominant the Rams were in that game on special teams, throwing the football. They ran the football fairly well. And on defense, the big part of that game for me is game planning. It's great to have intel. And you think about it. Aaron Cromer, who was on this staff for a long time and was the head coach when Sean was suspended for a while, in 2012, he's the offensive line coach for the Rams. Bill Johnson, old buddy of ours, he got released, defensive line coach for the Rams now. Great to have intel. They know exactly what Sean wants to do, how to do it, everything else. And Wade Phillips, man, he's seen everything in the world at this stage. I think it told me a lot more about the Rams than it did about the Saints, of how coaching does matter. What Sean McVay has done with the Rams is remarkable. To see Jared Goff a year ago and then watch him today. And the one thing about him is a young coach going for the jugular. He knew, and I always tease Bobby J about this, that he always says next man up, and I always tell him it depends on the next man.
Of course.
It does matter who's playing. No Okafor, no Lattimore, no Crowley. Man, Goff, he just picked them apart. Wherever Devontae Harris was, I'm throwing it. Now, you've got to now think this over. And my thing is, you got to start Sterling more. Devontae Harris, I think, is a good special teams player. He can play in the nickel dime spots. You can't start because they're going to go after him. Play the veteran. He knows what to do on every play. And this was as good a season as Kenny Vaccaro was having. This was absolutely the worst game he had.
I think they brought him back too early. I think they put him on the field because of the loss of Crawley and Lattimore. I mean, because he didn't seem to be the same player.
Guy. And to lose the ball in the sun like he had never played outdoors before. Right. So it was a game that you expected would happen fairly soon. But you know what? There's no rest for the weary. The Panthers don't care about who you got hurt because they got people hurt too. So as you brought out, and I think it's correct, 3 playoff games. Carolina, short week Atlanta, and then you see the Falcons again. You're talking about that's playoff atmosphere for all 3 of those teams. And Atlanta would like nothing better than to hit the tripwire, knock you out of the NFC South title. I don't know that they'll knock them out of the playoffs, but knock them out of the title, because right now that loss to Rams had one major ramification. You ain't playing all those games at home come playoff time.
Seeding,
Philly and Minnesota's got that almost sewed up. When you look at their schedule, how they will be able to peel that off. So it's just a bad game all the way across the board. And if you thought your kicking game was good, look at what the Rams got. But what did you get return yardage? You look at Pharaoh Cooper. You got zilch. Pharaoh Cooper, he had over 160 yards. So in the offseason, what this game sort of tells you is, I'd like the young quarterback that I can groom behind Drew Brees, but I also need to shore up my cornerback position And I need me a return man.
Bad.
I need me a return man.
Right, because they don't want to use Kamara in that.
He
role.
was just awesome.
He was unbelievable. We'll get to him in a moment. You know, Mike, when you look at this week, the possibility of Lattimore coming back, he did not practice
I would be
today.
shocked if Lattimore came back this week.
Williams is out with a groin. We don't know what the deal is there. Fleener's out with a concussion.
And
Armstead, it looks like he may be out. You hope those guys can get back. At least Lattimore and Crawley can get back. Crawley said today that he thinks he's going to play. But Mike, I said it on the radio show today. You're in the playoffs starting this week. It is playoff football from now until February.
You started the playoffs a week ago. That Rams game was a playoff game. Look the ramifications that came off of that.
No doubt.
And you played like a young football team. You didn't play like a team that had walked down that aisle before. And I've seen it enough over 30 years.
Sure.
And seeing a young team not quite mentally ready to handle that. Now, can they bounce back is going to be the big question mark. I think you're going to get total focus against Carolina. Crowd's going to be into it. It's going to be loud. Carolina, I thought the first game when they played Carolina was the most impressive win of the year. Everybody says Buffalo, and that was you just wiped the floor with them. But you beat a team on their own home turf and a really good defensive team where you had complete control of that football game from start to finish. I thought that was the most complete game that you had all year long, and Cam Newton didn't play well. And he's riding the roller coaster again. Last week, he was awful in that football game. But what happens? A scoop and score by Luke Kuechly. You get a return. They finding a way to win. So you know what? You get them at home. You close the door on it and kind of knock them. Because in essence, you get 2 for 1 beating them. Because technically, they're still ahead of Carolina because of how they beat them the first time. Man, put the 2 W's on there. You got a lot of football left to play. And again, I hate to say it, Atlanta looks like a spoiler team to me. That just, they winning just enough. But, man, they have played well against the Saints the last 2 years. Devontae Freeman has been the guy. And I think he's the reason Alvin Kamara's on this team.
Yeah, no doubt. Got to hope for bad Cam this week. Not good Cam, bad Cam. Because when
good Cam Jordan, bad Cam Newton.
There you go. Because if he's erratic, you got a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing with them is the running game.
Right.
He didn't run the ball the first time.
Because of the shoulder.
Because of his shoulder.
Right.
He ran the ball near the goal line and he scored. But he had some avenues he could have taken off and he passed on it. But now I think he says, I know what's on the line here. I'm going to do it. And also, too, is you can't let Christian McCaffrey sort of have that signature game where as a runner and even more effectively as a receiver coming out of the backfield, that's where he causes you a lot of problems.
Mike, I was really surprised on defense. They start rankings at the defensive end on
No,
on
that
the
didn't
wide
surprise
side.
me.
It didn't. It surprised Mike. I don't know why they didn't bring the kid up, Muhammad, or play Henderson more. I really keyed on him. I went back and looked at the game a second time. He did not look comfortable in that role.
Well, he played it in high school. He played a little bit of it at Louisville. And in some of the shows and leading up to the game, that was one of the things I brought up. I thought, and actually we asked Ryan Nielsen on the Monday, and he was like, I hadn't even thought of it. I looked at Bobby, he was like, he thought of that as soon as he heard about Okafor.
Right.
In essence, if I see Hendrickson or Kakaha with his hand in the dirt on first down, guess where I'm running the ball?
Running right at him.
I'm running right at him.
Right.
And when I look at Muhammad, I think he's got a lot of talent as a pass rusher.
Why aren't they using him right now, though? Even in
I think
in
he's
pass
a
rush
bit of,
situations.
right now, a bit of a one-trick pony to get up the field.
But so is Kakaha.
Exactly. But my thing with Muhammad is I can have one like that on the field. I can't have 2. And I think one of the things you saw in preseason was that on every snap, he's up the field. And you got to know what you got to do on every play. And if I start seeing that tendency that all he wants to do is jet up the field, I'm running the ball right behind him. So I think he's got a little bit of growing up from a recognition standpoint on defense more than the pass rush. But I think eventually, I'm with you, Eric. Eventually, you're going to have to say, you know what, kid, get in there and let's see what you can do.
Well, especially now because Kakaha's been ineffective, and you've got to do something.
And Hendrickson up against a 315 or 20-pound guy, he's just going to get mauled around in that football game. But, man, Cam Jordan. What an unbelievable game. But again, I understand the thought process, and I knew enough about Rankins that was my first thought. And we asked it on the coaches show, and they kind of buzzed around it.
Sure.
And I understand Ryan saying, "Oh, I hadn't thought of it," but he ain't letting nothing out the bag. But even Rankins looked like he got caught up inside a few times on the pass rush, and they flared it out to the side to him. So it was inexperience on his part.
No doubt. Kamara, 11 touches, 188 yards. When you look at what Peyton has done in the past, going into the hot hand, it totally shocked me that he did not go back to Kamara. They had no answer for Kamara on Sunday, whether it was in the passing game or the running game. It was one of the things, again, when you talk about the adjustments made during the game, Allen not getting Devontae Harris out the game a little bit quicker than he did, when it's pretty obvious he was blowing coverages, wasn't even in the same area code with receivers. And on the flip side, your receivers are not getting separation. Breeze is feeling the heat, not getting the ball to Kamara and making the Rams adjust to you.
Sometimes you got to throw your saddle on the horse.
Yeah.
That's warm. And to me, that's where...
And Peyton has always done that.
And he's done
Jimmy
that
Graham,
in the past,
Reggie Bush.
But now he seemingly went back to this running back by committee stuff. In the third quarter, where was Alvin Kamara?
Nowhere.
My thing is, we've had people say, well, you don't want to hurt Mark Ingram's feelings. Man, listen, my thing is I want to win a game.
Right.
They'll have times when Mark becomes the guy that you want to ride a bit. So I don't get that. I think that was a poorly coached game plan. He even brought up about, sometimes you think of things and it doesn't quite work out. I think he realized this game plan was a garbage one. To the garbage. It wouldn't work. And again, when you got guys on the other side that know you really well, I think he tried to outsmart them a little bit, outfox them. When you try to out-trick people,
sometimes you trick yourself.
You're going to trick yourself.
Yeah.
But again, Alvin Kamara, and I've seen a lot of backs come into the league. Since Marshall Faulk, I've never seen anybody make you miss like Alvin Kamara, his speed. And when you watch him run, it's almost like, because I have people say, you give too much credit to Usain Bolt. Well, when you're on the track and you see him, he's running, effortlessly.
Yes.
When you watch Kamara, it's effortlessly. And you don't think he's fast until you got to run against him or try to catch him.
And slippery.
And so the biggest thing I didn't know about Alvin, wiry strong. You never see him get kicked back. He gets hit. He might take a step back, but then he's always falling forward. I didn't know that part of his game, of how strong he is, kind of what I would call wiry strong. Because when you walk up to him, he's not a big guy at all. And the thing about him is, doesn't have a lot of mileage on the speedometer. I mean, at Alabama, Nick, he wasn't Nick's type of back. He goes to Tennessee, and Butch, he got no clue what to do with him. He's alternating him. You got a back here and doesn't have a lot of mileage. And so you can ride him. But I've never, Jimmy Graham, it took a little while for him to get accustomed. Colston, it took him a little while. But Eric, almost from day one, he looked like the fit. Exactly. He looked like the guy. And again, I don't want to compare him to Faulk as a player yet, but that ability to make you miss and to slip a tackle and to move around, I haven't seen anybody since Marshall that can do it like what Kamara could.
He's definitely a find, and he definitely fits this offense.
And he's the rookie of the year.
I don't think there's any doubt. And again, Lattimore gets back on the field. He's maybe the defensive rookie of the year.
And it's only happened twice since 1995. A defensive back has won it.
Wow.
A few years back, Marcus Peters won it. And the last guy to win it before Marcus Peters, Charles Woodson.
There you go. Let's head to the phone lines, 866-3200. Line it up for Mike to tell you tonight. Toby is in Gretna. Toby, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Yeah, Mike, draft question about who are the three highest interior defensive linemen in what round, and also the wide receiver from Washington, Pettis, and I'll hang up. Thank you.
Okay, I'll answer Pettis first because he's dangerous as a return man. I mean, he's got basically every record as a punt returner. And he would be a guy, I think, he may fall late in round one. He looks to be almost like an early second round pick. He's that dangerous guy. He could play in the slot, but his main goal would certainly be as a return man. He's going to make an impact quickly there. Bradley Chubb from North Carolina State. as a defensive end is a real talent at that spot. And certainly Christian Wilkins from Clemson would be the top-rated defensive tackle. And I'm just telling you, Arden Key is going to make a run at this.
Sure.
There aren't a lot of guys that can rush the quarterback like what Arden can.
And wait till he gets to the combine.
In his individual workouts, I talked to Chuck Smith. People might remember Chuck.
Sure.
He gave
you're
Willie
a Saints
Rowe,
fan. Remember Chuck Smith?
Now, Willie always says, I gave Chuck some hard time, but Chuck gave him some too. Chuck has a clinic out in Georgia and works with defensive linemen. He told me, I've never had anybody like Arden Key. And listen, he's done that a long time. So I think Wilkins, Chubb, Key, those are the guys that I think will be the early picks. The Saints won't get a sniff of any of those guys as far as pass rushers, interior or off the edge. It's going to be interesting with no second-round pick.
Right.
Here,
the Kamara deal.
That how they maneuver this. This looks to be a 20s pick somewhere in round 1, or if you can get any, it may even be farther
As we sit here today, what do you think the biggest need is?
I'll be honest with you. If the right quarterback's there,
you go with it.
I go with him.
Right.
And I'm going to just tell you, Baker Mayfield is going to get picked apart.
Right.
He's going to get picked
Right.
apart because
you think he's going to fall?
I think he's going to fall into
He's
the 20s.
a heck of a player.
I got a chance to talk to him twice and be with him at the Manning camp. Man, he's the ultimate competitor. Very low-speaking guy, didn't raise his voice. And the only time he kind of sat up in the chair with me was, when I asked him about the recruiting, and he said the only team that offered him from Texas was Rice. And, you could tell that had burned a hole in him. But,
like a little bit like Drew Brees.
Very much, and people say he's 6'1". There ain't no way.
Right.
He's either 5'11" and a half or right at 6 foot, but he's no bigger than that. Demeanor totally different from Drew. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Let's talk about talking trash. Man, if you're out on a football field, you hear a lot of bad language. Right. Now, the other stuff, come on. You got to know that the cameras are on you. Why are you doing that against Kansas? Right. They got one game. I think they're going to be more concerned about the arrest and what kind of led to that. And, he had a little fire water in him that night and that sort of thing. But if you're smart, you understand you made a mistake. And, listen, all of us have made mistakes one time or another.
Yes.
Maybe not caught on camera.
Right.
But still, that's something he is going to get picked apart. Size, his antics, his cockiness, everything, and he's going to fall. The other guy, too, and I'm telling you, is Lamar from Louisville. A lot of people, and I heard Bill Polian, he's nothing more than a receiver. Man, you watch him this year. He's playing on a bad team.
Yes.
He has really improved his passing mechanics. I think he's got a shot to be a pretty doggone good football player in the NFL throwing the football. Talking about just him being a receiver, you kind of grounded in one system if you believe that. But I think other than receiver, I think the spot that I would look at closely would certainly be if I could find me an interior player that could take the place of Nick Fairley.
Yes, no doubt about it. All right, let's head back to the phone lines. Mike is in Covington. Mike, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Mike.
Yeah, I want to ask y'all the schedule that LSU played after Auburn. I mean, they had Alabama, who's a good team, but other than that, they really didn't play much because all them teams have already let the coaches go, and it seemed to be a pretty good schedule for them. So, really, how good is LSU? I'll hang up and see what y'all say.
Well, Mike, they make these schedules 10, 12 years ago. Did you know what would happen to Tennessee back then or Texas A&M? You didn't. You just played the schedule that's given to you. The same thing can be flipped at Alabama. What about who they played at that point? You're just playing the teams that are on the schedule. You can't criticize somebody, they only beat one team with a winning record and this and that. You're just being critical to be critical at this point. You're just playing the teams that are on your schedule. Schedule is a schedule. It wasn't made last year or 5 years ago. These things are made 10, 12 years ago.
To his question, how good do you think they are?
I think they are not as good a team as they were a year ago. I think last year's team, when you look at that talent, I didn't think they played up to their full potential as a football team. I think this team, they played up to the potential of what they had. And been playing a lot of young kids and the injuries. And listen, I don't like to use injuries as an excuse. Everybody's got them. But I think this team played closer to their potential than the team a year ago, because it kind of left you wanting. Every game, it's like, how good is this team really? But I think last year's team was a better team than this year's LSU's team.
To Tony and Harvey. Tony, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Tony.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, sir.
Okay, my question is the defense. Lattimore, it's obvious that when he's not on the field, they have a totally different defense and they struggle. My question is, number one pick in the draft next year, anybody close to his ability to cover, I would take. That would make that defense pretty darn good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike,
they got nobody that good in this year's draft class. Minka Fitzpatrick is a tremendous player, but I think he's a better free safety than he is a cornerback at this stage. Denzel Ward from Ohio State, another Buckeye, who I think will come out early.
That connection between him and between Peyton and Ohio
and listen, it's almost a train. Listen, I'll take those guys from Ohio State. Michael Thomas, Von Bell.
Haven't struck out yet.
Lattimore's, that's pretty strong there. And I agree with you. You'd have to look, again, though, how you got Lattimore was really strange. He was clear-cut the best cornerback in the draft. Question marks about the hamstring. That's why he lasted. The crazy thing is, I think the team that really liked him early was Tennessee. And they had a hole at cornerback for him. I think they were scared off by the hamstring issues. They picked Davis, the receiver from Western Michigan, and what he's had all year, hamstring issues. So you just don't know, but I do agree with you that I think that has to be high on their need list next year. If it's in veteran free agency or the draft, you have to look at that corner position, because it's obvious that I think with Lattimore, as good as he is, he's like a fine-tuned car. They may have some downtime with him.
Mike, who do you like this weekend between Carolina and the Saints?
I like the Saints this weekend. I hate to say this, but I think they win Sunday and they lose Thursday.
Really? Now, Atlanta and Minnesota getting together as well.
Yeah. So, and they won't have, Devontae Freeman again, but, more than likely he'll play Thursday against the Saints. Atlanta's a strange team, because, at times they play so well, and then they fall apart for a period of time. But, man, that's 2 games real short. How much healthier you'll be on Thursday than you are on Sunday.
After playing a physical Carolina team.
Exactly. That's why, but I can also flip it and say Atlanta's got to play a real physical Minnesota
that's why I
team.
mentioned it. That's why I mentioned
it. That's an interesting game to watch with Minnesota. What Case Keenum has done has really been special as a quarterback for a guy, vagabond quarterback, and look how well he's done.
For those calls that we didn't get to tonight, we apologize. Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Eric.
Always
Appreciate
great to have you.
Appreciate it.
Mike Detillier with us tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLE at 10 p.m. Also 9 p.m. on Pelican Sports Network. That's every Friday night. We're on the Cox Cable tier. Thursdays at 10 and Saturday mornings at 2 a.m. That's Cox 130. Catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO. That's weekdays, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. Listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. And, of course, the TuneIn Radio app, a great way to take the show with you everywhere. Again, special thanks to our guest, Mike Detillier. Always great to have Mike on the program. Also, to the WLE production staff. We appreciate all their contribution. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Kenny Juneau, also Trey Lopez, and my director, William Hill. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com.